The Center for Audit Quality presents Profession in Focus.
Hello, I'm Cindy Fernelli, the Executive Director of the Center for Audit Quality, and welcome to this edition of Profession in Focus. I'm very pleased to have with me today Michele Hooper, who is the President and CEO of the Directors Council. But perhaps more importantly, at least to me, Michele is one of our independent board members at the CAQ. And that means that she is one of our board members who is not of the public company auditing profession, but rather helps us bring that inside-out view to the CAQ. So I'm thrilled to have you with us today, Michele.
Well, I'm really pleased to be here, and thank you for asking me.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, given your important role as serving as the governing board representative or the governing board champion for all of our anti-fraud work, which is so important to the marketplace and to the CAQ. So tell us, what led you to want to take on that role?
You know, it's interesting. The fraud initiative came out of our very first strategy retreat within the CAQ. And it is a very important process, both in terms of looking at the media issues as it relates to where is the external auditors when we had so many troubles with fraud. And when you look at and talk to investors and others who are associated with the whole issue of fraud, the question continually comes up, where is the external auditors? When we were looking for someone to champion this initiative, I thought we needed to change the conversation. And so in talking with the other members of the Center for Audit Quality Board and getting support for becoming the champion of this initiative, I thought it was absolutely right on point, because it's something that I do care very deeply about, because I don't feel it is a problem of the external auditors.
Well, that's one of the important roles and findings of our anti-fraud work, is that there's a supply chain. So it's the external auditor, internal auditor, management, and audit committee members as well that all play a role.
Well, I feel that that is what I call, from my perspective, part of the Deming quality model process. When you think about the Deming quality model, which I'm sure a lot of you and I did a lot of when I was back in the corporate world, it was looking at where the elements of quality were. And if you look at those at the end, the inspectors at the end, there were a lot of other hands that touched a product or a process before it got to the end. And I view external auditors in very much the same way. There are a lot of hands that touch financial reporting before it gets to the external auditors. And so we all have a responsibility, both the audit committee, of which I have had a role in for the last 20 years, the audit committees, the internal auditors, the company management, most importantly, as well as those stakeholders and others that have a voice in what goes on within corporations.
Well, one of the key tools that the anti-fraud work has in its arsenal are the case studies. And the case studies there are 3 of them, and they're a hypothetical set of facts that show the importance of all of the various parties having a discussion and being part of the solution. So tell us a little bit about the case studies, which are done in the Harvard Business Model.
You know, I think the case studies are a very valuable addition to the arsenal of fraud tools that we have brought to the marketplace. There weren't that many case studies that actually talked about fraud, and talked about fraud from the perspective of having the input of those who know a lot about it, which are the external auditors. So our fraud cases are based upon a lot of input and work by a wide variety of people from a number of external audit firms, trying to pull together cases that don't relate to any one fraud, but that are a compilation of things that these folks have seen over their histories and over the histories of their firm. And so the rooting in fact is really helpful. The fact that it is a case study, I think, is most helpful as we have taken it out to the marketplace. And you begin to see the role playing that is now being done by those who are using the case, I think has been added a tremendous amount of value to the understanding of what drives fraud, of the interplay of a variety of forces that actually can lead to fraud, and a really robust discussion about, can it happen to me? And how did it happen here? And how can we indeed address the issues? And then you have something to take back to your own firm. So it's really been a very valuable process.
So you mentioned that you've been in the boardroom for a good part of your career, sitting on corporate boards. Do you think corporate boards pay enough attention to potential frauds in their companies?
You know, that's an interesting question. I'd like to say the answer to that is yes. I'm not sure the answer to that is yes, but we now have some tools to help us make sure that we at least pay attention. Sarbanes-Oxley, a lot of people have differing opinions about Sarbanes-Oxley, but Sarbanes-Oxley, through its signature requirements of both the CEO and the Chief Financial Officer, its huge focus on internal controls, Dodd-Frank's focus on whistleblowers, as well as other underpinnings that relate to processes for financial reporting. All of these have been tools that have strengthened our ability to understand where we may potentially have fraud. So as companies, we're required to have whistleblower hotlines, we're required to have 404 reporting, we're required to have CEO and CFO signatures. So we have to begin to look at those things, and it gives us tools that ultimately allow us to look at fraud. My biggest concern is, will we take our eye off the ball as other things become more important? And right now, the big issue on the table is cyber. Mm-hmm. Cyber is in every conference that you talk about. Cyber is practically in any governance article that you pull up. Cyber is in all of the external auditor information that we're now seeing. I'm concerned that we take our eye off the ball, and we can't. We have to be focused on internal controls and other things that ensure the integrity of the financial statements.
Well, Michele, I want to thank you for joining us on this edition of Profession in Focus, and also for being the champion for our anti-fraud work.
You're welcome, and I've enjoyed it immensely.
And I'm Cindy Fornelli, thanking you for joining us at Profession in Focus. Please join us next time for another hot topic in public company auditing.